see if we can get it through two 90-degree bends without running a fish tape. I have destroyed this shop. Here's one. I don't think I'm gonna make it through the next one. I don't think I have quite enough cable either. I might as well get a fish. Run through there. Oh, this shop is depressing. Had it all straightened out, and then I started doing all this electrical junk and tried to correct problems as I went that were existing. Now I just got a teetotal mess. And my fish tape does not want to work. Now, what happened to it when I was doing that pull yesterday? It is so twisted. This is ridiculous. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. So I didn't glue up these bottom few connections. I am going to do this easy way. This is PV wire made specifically for solar. I forgot to pull the ground through. Oh, I had that through there before. If I would have remembered, I didn't glue those last two connectors, or that last two pieces of conduit, I would not have pulled this back out after I had it through there. Oh, looky there. I mean, I might actually have enough wire. Heck yeah. Couple pieces. Most of the rest of that's glued. Decided to leave these ones not glued. You know what? Before I do that, I better run the ground wire through there. More tangled up wire. I'm just so disgusted with this shop right now. Having to tear everything apart to fix some old wiring that I found that needed something done with it. Instead of letting it just sit like it has been for years, what turned into what I thought to be a 2-hour project the other day, just running that conduit over to that panel, wound up a 2 or 3 day project, putting a new sub panel in and changing a bunch of wiring that went to the welder, and it was just a disaster. Had to move everything away from the walls. Yeah, I'm whining. I bought this online. It was a little cheaper. Nobody had a very good selection locally. But when they wrap this, they use that stinking strapping tape. It's fiberglass tape. Oh, I hate this stuff. Why they didn't use electrical tape, beyond me. Stuff is just a pain. Should be enough to get the job done. If I would have remembered to pull this through with the PV wire. Been a heck of a lot easier. This wire does not push very good through conduit. Right there, every time you hit a joint, this stuff, it wants to catch the edge of the joint. Try again. And we're at the same joint again. It's going to be that joint right up there. It's catching on. See if I can pull it through the other way. This particular PV wire, pretty stiff stuff. Worked with a lot of PV wire. I got this stuff online for a good price, but boy is it stiff. Oh boy. The reason I use this half-inch conduit is I had a whole bunch of it laying around from another project. Well, actually, I think somebody gave it to me. And normally I would have ran at least 3/4 inch for this, but I had this stuff, so I thought I'd use it. Now I'm regretting that decision. Oh. I may have to pull that PV wire out. Tape this up to it. I'm saying this sucks. I had a big tube of wire lube and I don't know where the heck I did with it. Prime example why you should wear safety glasses all the time. Pulled that out, that piece of wire come back, hit me right in the eye. Fortunately it was no strands sticking out. Didn't feel good though. Okay, this ought to be very interesting trying to get that shoved back through there. Is it caught on already? Are you kidding me? I'm very tempted to pull that fish out. Get rid of that bad part that's about the first 10 feet of it. Just doesn't want to cooperate. If I want to get that through there, that's what I'm going to have to do. Okay. So it's been that first 10 or so feet. The worst set of water pump pliers made on the planet. I don't know where I got these things from, but they're terrible. I don't go too tight with that bender, it'll snap. It's almost too tight. I hate half-inch conduit. It's because it's so stinking hard to pull anything through it. Normally I would strip some wire off and wrap around that. I'm going to try cheating today. Don't pull that off inside of there. Such a pain. Pulling wire by yourself. It really helps if you have somebody feeding this in for you so it quits catching the edge. You're kinking up on me here, wire. I won't make that mistake again. Let's go buy some 3/4 inch conduit. What a pain in the rear that is. So I like to leave a little loop inside junction boxes like this, just in case you need to do something a little different down the road. It's not such a big hassle. You got a little bit to play with. Well, as you can tell, we decided to give solar another try. Not as an off-grid system this time, but a grid tie system. And after 4 frustrating days of wiring, because I found so many issues with the shop, I finally got that wiring taken care of and moved on to building the racks for the solar panels. These racks are made by Unirack, and I bought them at a almost giveaway price. The only thing is I had to get them out of there that day. They originally were a little over 20 feet long, and I had to cut them down into about 10-foot lengths to get them hauled home. So now I'm putting some splices in to reconnect them back together. My original impression of these racks was pretty bad. I didn't like that all the hardware was proprietary, and I mean, it's really nice hardware, but it's fairly expensive. And then I discovered that it'll accept 1/4 inch and 3/8 bolts without any modification, and made it much more palatable in my opinion. And I did a mock-up with the rails on the panels just to see where I needed to put the ground supports and such, and make sure these were going to fit properly. The only thing, when you don't use the Unirack hardware, you have to use the bolt holes in the back of the solar panels. I started off using nylon nuts or locking nuts on all the hardware on these solar panels, just because of my experience working on solar systems up on mountaintops where the wind tends to rattle everything loose, and then you go back to the site and your panels are laying on the ground. I think I made it through 2 or 3 panels and changed my mind and went just to standard nuts because it was such a pain trying to get in there and ratchet those things tight. The solar panels I purchased from a company in Nampa, Idaho called Advanced Solar. Can't say enough good about this company. These are used panels rated at 245 watts. And so far they've exceeded every listed specification. And here we're just laying it up there to kind of estimate the angle and where we're going to need to put the ground supports and roof supports. Now this does come back to bite me later because I forgot to go back and readjust those panels and make them square. So my whole rack wound up being just a little bit out of square. As you can tell, this time of year the ground gets pretty soppy out here, and it's a lot of clay in this ground, so it sticks to everything. And fortunately, the day that we did this, it had actually dried out a little bit and made it not so terrible to work outside.
Look how Daddy does this. When you're bigger, you can do this just like Daddy.
Look at Daddy. He muddy. Muddy Daddy. Is Daddy gonna give it a hug again? Muddy Daddy. Muddy Daddy. Mommy, can I drop that down?
I get it full first. Okay, start stomping.
That's okay. And I can play in the mud.
Up. Well, I think that's about all we have time for today, but I wanted to dive into the construction of this project a little bit and just kind of show what a nightmare that whole wiring thing turned out to be. There was a couple 220 outlets that had been added to that shop after the shop had been built, and it was just kind of ran across the ceiling with two small gauge wire. I tore all that junk out, put the right size wire in, and ran it through conduits. And one thing I discovered during this whole process was our well pump, it goes over to a pressure box, a pressure switch, and from the wire that fed from that pressure switch to the breaker box was only 12 gauge wire, and that's like a 3 or 5 horsepower well pump. I mean, it puts out like 60 gallons a minute. I couldn't believe the size of wire they used to do that, and it was a 12-2 wire, so it had two, a black and a white, and then a ground running through it. There was no neutral. So I tore all that out and got the right size wire put back in. It turned into a complete nightmare, but at least it's done. I took all the spring break off to be with the family and the wife, and I wound up spending a lot of it out there in the shop just straightening that wiring out. It was well worth the effort, so we don't have to worry about it in the future. And so in the next video, we'll kind of dive into the finishing stages of constructing the solar panels. I won't spend a lot of time on it. I mean, it's not rocket science or anything. And then we'll dive into the electrical aspect of the panels and the inverter and how that all ties together. And just today I found out that our electrical company, on their website, they say net metering is, you know, just fine and dandy. Well, as soon as I hooked this thing up and started producing, you know, upwards of 3,200 watts of power with the panels I put up, the meter started to run backwards, but then it started showing an error. So I called them and said, oh yeah, well, we need to go put a different meter in. But you have to have all these electrical inspections done first. So now I got to go through that process too. So it shouldn't be a big deal. Everything should be up to code, but we'll find out here in the next week or so. Anyway, thanks for watching. Oh, before we go, the hats you see in the videos, those are up for sale to help support the channel. One like this, I think these are, I think they're $24. Shipped, first class mail here in the US. If you're out of the States, we'll have to figure something out if you happen to want one. We also have the trucker or mesh style caps with the logo on them. I'm usually not a big fan of this style of hat, but I know a lot of people like them, and I actually like the way this one looks. It turned out looking pretty good. And right now we just have them in the gray for the trucker style, and the black for this logo. If you want the full logo, we do have those in a khaki kind of color too. You'll see me wearing it in the video a little bit. Anyway, if you're interested in that cap and help supporting the channel, send us an email, and it's in the description below and here on the screen. Just shoot us an email and we'll get you set up with a cap. Anyway, thanks for watching, subscribing, giving us a thumbs up once in a while, and we'll see you guys on the next video.